Hello, everyone. I've been waiting for some time now to share in more depth and detail my process and experience with fasting and Breatharianism, as well as invite you on the journey with me. That time is now for many different reasons. First of all, in my opinion, when a thing becomes a thing, or when a word has ism on the end of it, there's potential to lose the originally intended depth of the practice or the organic compartment of consciousness that's been awakened. Isms, of course, as we know, have the potential to become dogmatic and another narrative or system to staunchly or rigidly buy into. For me, before I even knew or had heard of the word Breatharianism, I was reading ancient texts with accounts of advanced yogis and monks and masters and sages that had found a way to not eat very much. And of course, the standard conditioning around that for us is to interpret it as though they're depriving themselves of something, or being masochistic, or punishing themselves from a place of deficiency, or martyrdom, or sacrifice, or weakness. But I intuited all of those many years ago when I was reading those accounts that actually it seems like they've tapped into or plugged into something deeper, because otherwise the stories about them did not indicate that they were emaciated or falling apart or shriveling. In fact, quite to the contrary, they were vibrant, happy, fulfilled, jubilant, glowing even, literally. And so that sparked an intellectual interest in how they're doing that, what it's all about. And it also awakened what I believe was a past life memory of having done that before. There was a deep and clear resonance with what I was reading, what I was intuiting, and thus began the ball rolling in the direction of spontaneously combusting, if you will, into an alternative system of processing and metabolizing and utilizing energy in this body-mind system. That occurred 2 years ago, and from then until now, I have been very intuitively guided and have been experimenting on myself in many different ways and versions of fasting and Breatharianism. In my opinion, the difference between fasting and Breatharianism, and I simply call it Breatharianism because that's become the word for it. Even though, again, I don't like the label or the identity or the over-identification with it, like I am a vegan, I am a breatharian, I am whatever it is that, again, could be dogmatic or rigidly adhered to. Rather, it is, in fact, a very natural, if you will, or supernatural ability, gift, and experience that transcends and goes beyond conditioning, transcends and goes beyond our belief, transcends and goes beyond the lower chakras, where, in fact, anger and aggression and jealousy and all of the kind of lower animalistic qualities reside. Fasting, to me, is going without food, or for some, also liquid, going without the typical patterns of ingesting in order to clear out the digestive system, in order to have a cleanse, in order to reset your body, and many other byproducts that come from that. However, with strict fasting or mere fasting, you then have to replenish. You then go back more or less to eating again. And it's usually periodic or intermittent, but still relying on food and the kind of third dimensional way of ingesting and digesting that we're all accustomed to. You're still in that system. And the spiritual experiences, as well as the physiological and health implications and benefits there, are vast in and of themselves. So I'm not downplaying that. However, Breatharianism, or whatever else we might want to call it, is graduating from the need for physical food, and yes, for some, myself included, water, liquids, altogether. The need, in the way that it was, in the way that we've been taught, is no longer there. Hunger, in fact, is no longer there. Eating or ingesting in the other paradigm kind of way is simply by choice and or for pure pleasure. It's no longer from a place of deficiency, or just because it's 6 o'clock it's time to eat dinner, or just when you wake up in the morning you eat breakfast with your routine. It becomes very present momently guided. And the enjoyment of eating when I do eat now is far greater than it ever has been. In fact, I have historically had not a great relationship with food due to allergies and kapha dosha. For those of you who are not familiar, that's an Ayurvedic term that we don't have to go into now. My kapha dosha propensity to have kind of sluggish and not great digestion. Through fasting and Breatharianism, transitioning to a higher, deeper system of, again, processing and metabolizing energy more directly from the source itself, has, in fact, cleared up, healed, reset all of my allergens, or at least transformed them and made me less sensitive. At the same time, more sensitive in other ways. Also has reset my digestive system when I do eat. And those are just the physiological and health benefits. When I'm on a 3 or 4 or 5 day dry fast, which means nothing, no food, no water, and am supplementing with meditation and yoga and other practices for energy, the high, and I don't even do it for an experience of being high, but the high that comes from the elevated consciousness, vibration, the lightness in the system, the connection and communion with Source, with God, with life, is like none I've ever experienced. Also, my softness, my compassion, my tenderness increases in relating with other people, and that kind of lower chakra agitation and aggression is just not there. The way I am present with my wife, present with my students, present with myself, present with strangers, and even crying kind of at the drop of a hat with sweet tears of empathy increases dramatically. There's an overwhelming of joy, happiness, union, oneness, connection that I have in those states. So fasting and Breatharianism, or whatever it has historically been called, if it has even been called anything, is a deeply healing experience, physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, etc., cleansing, and is also a deeply spiritual experience. It's in every spiritual text across the board. Unfortunately, it's been interpreted as deprivation, going without, rather than what I just described to you and what I intuited all those many years ago. I think there's something deeper happening here. And in fact, it's true. So this has become a lifestyle for me. And I've had many different experiences with it. Have kind of ironed out the kinks and have done a lot of troubleshooting with myself as my own first guinea pig. And I'm ready to offer it to you, especially now when food, not to mention many other of the basic or base biological functions that we have as humans, have been weaponized against us, used against us maliciously and intentionally. We have been lied to about our need for food, what kind of food we need. The food industry, as we all know, not just the meat industry, but the food industry in general, is infiltrated by darkness. They are literally putting poison in our food. That might have cognitively, dissonantly gone in one ear and out the other. When I said that, let me say it again. They have weaponized food against us. They have lied to us about consumption and how much we need. So even if you're growing a sustainable organic garden, which is beautiful and amazing and a good thing to do, you have still been lied to about how much food you need. Therefore, if you embark down this road, think of the money you can save. Think of the work you can cut back on. Think of the extra time you would have to spend either with family and friends. And guess what? When you're with family and friends, you don't have to be eating every time. To be spent doing more introspection, contemplation, yoga, meditation, etc. And the reserves. Not to mention, you actually don't have to sleep 8 hours in a night. That's another lie. Or if not a lie, is an assumption based on the other lie of how many calories and how much food you need, because you need extra time during the night to digest it and process it. The awakeness, the alertness, the clarity, the groundedness is profound and is literally organic. You don't need an extra supplement. You already have it, but it's a process. It's a transition. Comes with a lot of necessary deconstruction around what we've been taught and our emotional connection, as well as addiction and codependency on food and certain kinds of food and certain times of eating, certain patterns and habituations that seem normal or are taught to us as normal but are really unhealthy, or at least blind. Anything that you rely on, you are literally a slave to. That may sound extreme, but think about it. Do you really want to be free? This is the answer to the world's hunger problems. This is the answer to the world's financial problems. Not to mention that, spiritually speaking, we are now on a pathway of elevating consciousness, ascending, if you will, as a planet. At least that's the invitation. Not everybody is on that trajectory, and that's okay. But in my opinion, in order to get to the next dimension vibrationally, you have to throw out all the dense, heavy baggage. Now, we're not demonizing and cutting ourselves off from the lower base biological animalistic chakras. The concept transcend and include is very important here. However, we are very fixated and obsessed, and yes, attached, again, addicted to the lower chakras. Sleep, sex, food, and others. So you may have already kind of been feeling this. Some people are actually losing interest in food or simply eating less as a byproduct of deeper spiritual realizations and awakenings. That's the first step. You can take this from any place you want. Fasting, Breatharianism, physiological, health benefits, spiritual, ascension, or simply experimental, just to prove the establishment wrong, just to prove the lies, or to expose the lies that we've been taught, and to rewrite your own belief system through direct experience. It's amazing. It's profound. True freedom, true liberation, true self-sustainability in your own body-mind system is possible. And it's one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given, honestly. And awakened from a past life 10 years ago, and then spontaneously happened 2 years ago. And I have refined it and cultivated it in a way that works, and have deepened it in a way that's also sustainable for the rest of my life. And I now have enough of a grasp on it and experience with many different ins and outs of it that I want to now share it with you, and I'm ready to share it with you. I'm going to record a supportive video course for guiding you into the transition. And of course, you can just try it, see if you like it, and then might return to it here and there. It might not become a lifestyle for you. It might be a once a year fast cleanse, but you then have the information and the ability and the knowledge to do it, and me as your guide to reference. Or it might spark a whole new trajectory for your life, like it did for me. Change you inside and out, your whole perspective on everything. That's great too. You can take it however you like. So, I'm going to do a pre-recorded video course to support you along the way, because this can in fact be dangerous if you've not done appropriate ego work, nervous system work, shadow work, subpersonality work. If you've had eating disorders in the past or other medical conditions in the past or currently, those should be taken into consideration. If you have body image issues, we'll talk about allergies. We'll talk about all of these things, because people do die of starvation. People do die of thirst. People do have adverse consequences to different kinds of diets and fasts, and that's not what we're after. So the other kind of work that I teach is very important to supplement. Not just to supplement, but as a foundation for taking this deeper dive. However, most everybody can experiment with simply eating less, having brief intermittent fasting, and seeing what happens. But to the degree with which you're ready, to the degree with which you've done some deeper work, and to the degree that you want to take it, is where I will meet you with it. And I look forward to embarking on this with you and sharing one of the deepest, most profound experiences of my life that I know will change your life too. Namaste.